Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 67. Big Box Steve on the mic, Big Smooth Derek, Fresh Wes back again. So if you missed him last week, let him know about it in the comments.
He misses me. Come on.
we were talking about it last week, and we're like, we need you for like the other things because Derek and I always end up saying the same stuff. So we need you to be
Yeah.
like the opposite,
Yeah.
throwing the weird stuff from time to time.
Yeah.
Gotta have that. You gotta have that good opinions, in there that you don't want to always be on the norm.
I look at things from a different angle.
Right. Yeah.
People are still trying to figure out that angle.
It's a good angle to have. It's a good angle to have for sure. If you guys are watching on YouTube or listening on podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like, leave comments. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, appreciate listening. So let's get into this week's episode. Obviously, we want to kind of jump off here with the happenings of today, which is in sports. It's a big day, is NBA draft. It's not quite over yet, but first round's done. Um, Before we kind of talk about the drafts, what's happening in this year's draft, I want to talk a little bit about like the kind of the way the draft is different over the years. I guess when we were first watching NBA when we were younger, it was kind of like, hey, you had these guys, they went to college for 4 years, they came out, they got drafted, right? And like you got to see them for a long period of time. You knew a lot of where they're coming from, but there wasn't a lot of different makeup to the draft, I guess,
Mhm.
comparatively now. So when you guys see that today or as of recent, like how does that change the draft, or how has it changed the draft? Is that good? Is it bad? What do you guys think about that?
Well, looking at for me, I was like, checking mock drafts before the draft and all this, and I'm like, who are these people? Like three of them are from the D League,
Right.
and so it's like it's just kind of, I get it in a way. I just wish you would just let them come from high school and then straight in, because you don't want. I didn't see any games with Scoot Henderson or the Thompson twins or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard of Scoot, and then I heard of the Thompsons, but never seen any highlights or seen anything of them. None of their
Uh,
games were really on TV.
right, right. Do you think that's a can be an advantage for players though to like play in the D League for a year or two, and then does it make them more NBA ready than maybe college does?
I would kind of think so, because you get used to like a travel schedule and everything, and just practice, and it's just all about basketball. You don't have to
School to
like,
worry about. Right.
right. I mean, if they even worry about school, they have to at least be on campus. But
Right.
Yeah.
I would see that as I was kind of thinking of it, that same thought process was that it seems like almost as an advantage for them to go into that first, and it's almost like what baseball does, right? With the minor leagues.
right, yeah, you get drafted out of high school and you can just go to the minors, and then they have the rookie leagues, single A, double A, and triple A. So yeah,
Yeah, turn into like a farm system.
yeah,
Yeah. And then, but then you got, guys coming from outside the country, obviously still. That's been around a lot longer, but
right.
still, very prevalent, especially as more European stars and guys, from other
Mhm.
countries start winning championships. And, you obviously got guys like Jokic and it's just,
Doncic.
yeah, Luka Doncic.
Luca.
Yeah. So it's interesting makeup to the draft as I'm starting to look back at it, comparatively to what, when I was really into the draft, it was a lot different. I'm not as much in the NBA draft. It's interesting to watch, and we see a lot of games still. Some of these college players I seem to know really well, but a lot of these, like you're talking about, I just don't know a lot about them either.
Right.
Wes, how do you think that affects the draft? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I mean, yeah, it's like looking at the Thompson twins. I knew nothing about them. I knew a little bit about Scoot just because of Victor, because they, it's like they played against each other. And that's the only reason I even knew anything about Scoot Henderson. Yeah, so it's yeah, it gets them. I think it gets them more NBA ready. You got a bunch of guys that they travel and they're playing against other elite talent, not like in high school where Bronny's playing like guys that aren't nearly as good. They're not NBA. They're not NBA nearly NBA ready, and they're high school kids. And he's smoking them, and everyone's like, "He always so great. He's already at commercials." Like, really? Like I mean, when you watch LeBron, you look at Bronny, it's like, come on, you're putting way too much pressure on this kid.
Yeah, you are for sure. And he's got a lot of spotlight, but he's not rated that particularly that high comparatively to some of the other players, because there's a lot of good young high schoolers right now.
Oh yeah.
And so he's going to have tough competition as far when it comes draft time.
Didn't he lose to like what's the team from Oregon, right?
Yeah. Westland?
Lake Ridge or Westland?
Westland, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
I thought they lost. Yeah,
that's funny.
It was like the Les Schwab Invitational or something, right? And
right.
Les Schwab.
Yeah, and then you kind of look at the top 5 or the top 10 in the draft, right? And you are seeing D-League guys, you're seeing overseas guys. Like what's the incentive it starts creating for guys coming out of high school to not go to college,
Yeah.
Because there might be more opportunity for them if they're really just all about basketball to just head that other direction. So I think it changes the dynamic a lot, even for those high school kids and what they see.
Well, especially if you come from a lower income background, why you want to go to college.
Right.
If you're good, and if you're like, you're going to be a top 10 pick, why go to college when you could just start earning money right away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, nil now, but
and potentially put yourself in the of a better chance almost to be a top pick, right? Because maybe you go to college, you get injured, or maybe you play on a team that doesn't fit your style as well. There's a big difference in college coaching, I think, into even the D-League coaching. It's more going to be driven towards what the NBA does, where college, it's about winning, right? It's about the coach's game plan and and matchups, things like that. So, but talking about the draft, so I mean, I guess what we're talking about kind of leads into I think the Scoot pick. I mean, we're obviously from Portland, and we followed the Blazers probably most of our lives.
Technically, we're from Portland, but we're just I'm not really here. I'm actually I'm already gone.
Already gone. Well, it's not a bad thought process. So why do they draft Scoot Henderson here? Like, so they have Dame, obviously. You're drafting a highly rated point guard. I mean, I guess they thought he would go number 2 was his projection.
You got to take the best player available.
I mean, is it a best player available thing, you think?
This is a positionless league now. You don't need like their traditional 7-foot center and you could play them both together. Or the big thing is he's a huge trade chip.
Yeah. Well, what about Simmons? You got maybe you trade Simmons.
Well, the what people were saying was for like Zion or Paul George or someone like that, you'd have to trade both.
Right.
So Simmons,
they don't want to give up on Simmons. They want to keep him, and I think Derek's kind of right in his initial assessment that if you get Scoot Henderson, then you have a trade chip. You don't have to give up on Anthony. They want to keep him. So he might be a trade. He might be like just a trade option.
Yeah, you can play them all. Right. You're playing them all 3 in a rotation, maybe even if you don't trade them.
Yeah.
Well, and then if it doesn't work out and you're like, okay, we're going to look to the future now, then you trade Dame.
Right. Yeah, if they're having like a bad start to the season, you may see that move happen earlier than later.
Yeah.
Especially if they can get, a draft haul and someone to come in and play, maybe a big position.
Did you see what at first when the Wizards did that trade of Bradley Beal, I thought this was a horrible trade. Now, all this, have you seen all the specifics to all the draft picks and everything they've gotten for
Oh,
Porzingis?
I didn't look that deep.
It's crazy. It's like 12 draft picks,
Right.
like players, and they got Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones and all that, plus like a plethora of draft picks.
Yeah.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It is kind of crazy when you look at the Suns, though. It's like, man, you're really putting all your eggs in this basket, thinking that this big three is going to win you a championship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
big
Beal.
risk.
I think I like the position for Beal here because I think it takes a lot of pressure off of him.
Yeah.
And I think he's a better player when he doesn't have to be, the star. I think he plays really well when he can be that, get a lot of one-on-one or even off-ball shots, where he's because he's a great shooter. And if you're not, even if you've got a double team or if you're collapsing and you leave him open, he's going to make a lot of shots.
And he's one of the best rebounding guards in the NBA. So it's like
big.
he doesn't just shoot; he can actually do some stuff for you. Yeah. I mean, honestly,
so he can take Deontay Aiden's job, right?
Yeah.
They're looking to trade him too.
Oh yeah.
Well, you
want to get rid
of him. You want to why you still got value in him, right? Because he looks like he's headed the wrong way.
Yeah.
From where he was, right? Because when he came into the league, like everybody thought, and he was playing a little bit like he was going to be a powerhouse center.
Well, I think also it's like you said, it's what kind of coaching. I mean, they probably weren't. When you bring in Durant and Booker and stuff, you're not trying to do pick and roll and things like that. It's like more ISO and perimeter shooting heavy.
Yeah, it puts him in a hard position because that's not his strength.
Right. He's a traditional center.
Right. But still, he's still got a rebound. Like, even if you're not scoring, man, you got to rebound.
Yeah.
So, okay. I mean, and, obviously I want to talk about, so let's talk about Portland's other pick before we get through others, go to some other places in the draft. So they got another first rounder at 23 in Murray.
I like that pick too.
I really like that pick. What do you think of that, Wes?
Yeah, I don't know much about that. I saw some highlights of him. Yeah, he seems like he's actually a power forward. He actually, he's not an explosive player, but he hits threes. He's a good 3-point shooter. He rebounds. Looks like he plays defense. Looks like he's a solid player. And if they lose Grant, he can just kind of step right in. I mean, he's kind of ready to play right now. So I think at 23, I think it's a solid pick.
Mm-hmm. And his pro comp is his twin brother,
right?
Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
So, and Keegan Murray did pretty well.
Yeah. I like that. He's a great defender, and I think that's what they really needed. They need someone who can do that. I think he has a lot of energy, which I think is helpful. I mean, I watched quite a bit of different Iowa games, throughout when he was playing there, and he was just always a hustle guy, which that's what I think. One, that's good for any team, but if he can knock down some perimeter shots when he's open, he can play defense on some bigger guys. I think it's a real help for them, and potentially could be a really good, sixth man to start off with, something like that. So good. I mean, I guess Portland did well, right? 2 first-round picks. You got 2 good players. I think you guys are right when you talk about Scoot can be a bargaining chip, so maybe he can fit in or he can, help in trades, things like that.
Or you mix those 3 on the floor, like Simmons, Simons and Lillard and him. And then you have, you have
Sharp.
You got Murray, who, you need a guy like him to hustle and be like that Jerome Kersey type player.
Yeah.
Only he
Right.
can hit threes. You leave him open, he'll kill you on threes. So it's like he can shoot threes too. So
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes, them a little bit more competitive this year.
Yeah.
Well,
Overall, I'd say they did well.
yeah, I'm not as sold on Simons as other people. I'd rather if we could package him and Scoot and get a Zion or like a Paul George or someone like that, I would do that.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to win right away.
It depends on what your end goal is, right? If you're trying to build.
Yeah. I think I think they'd rather get Zion just because George is hurt. He just
Well, Zion's hurt all the time too.
It's like, when is Zion
Zion's
not
got to
hurt?
lose like 30 pounds. And that's another problem too. It's like, are you really you're gonna go pretty much all in on Zion when you don't
the other one was also on that team was Brandon Ingram. That would be an interesting pick.
That would be good.
That would
be good for them. So I think there's pressure to not build for the future. I think there's pressure to win right now because I don't think they want to lose Dame. I think they see Dame as hopefully retiring as a Blazer, playing at a high level here for the rest of his career. Yeah. But he needs to win. He wants to win. Like, you could tell he wants to be on a winning team. He's said it in not so many words that he would be willing to go somewhere if he had to.
Right. If they don't get their act together and give him a team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that puts some pressure on them to say, well, we can't necessarily now just trade off and hope for a future, because we may then lose our present.
Well, that was the whole thing is like they held on to McCollum for way too long.
Right.
Should have got rid of him earlier when at the height of his.
Right. Before they signed the $200 million contract.
Yeah. And then they could have gotten stuff better than they did. And that was the issue. They held on. That's the problem with the Blazers is they hold on to guys too long when they should have got rid of them sooner.
Right.
Like Batum. Jermaine O'Neal.
It's a long list.
Oh my God.
So when you guys look at the first round, what are some standouts for you? What's something that, you look at, you think that's a good pick, or wonder why they picked that. That's a bad pick. Because I think there's quite a few interesting picks here.
I really thought the Rockets did really well.
Yeah.
They got Amon Thompson and Cam Whitmore at 20.
Right.
Cam Whitmore was supposed to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, Whitmore solid.
And he fell to 20. So I think that's huge value. And to get the better of the Thompson twins plus Whitmore, that helps out a lot of your team.
Yeah, I liked there's a couple of different picks, but I really like, let's see. Jacquez Jr. I think is a great pick for Miami.
Yeah,
I think that especially at 18, because I think that he gives a lot more than, I think he's also another one of those energy guys. He can play defense. He's a good fit for Miami's style. So I thought that was a real good pick for them. I thought the Derek Lively pick was interesting for Oklahoma City because I see potential in him, but he's got a lot of work to do. His offense isn't super strong. He's one of those tall, skinny guys. Almost like you're looking at a non-scoring Chet Holmgren, and it's like, I thought that was an interesting pick for them. I don't think it might turn out right because he plays great defense. He's long and he can he gets off the ball. He help defenses good. So I thought that was an interesting pick. And then Memphis picking Sasser. That's almost like we don't trust Ja Morant.
Yeah, that was kind of. But again, you can interchange. You can.
Yeah, I mean you
Now
can,
you got
right? But
Marcus Smart, and just kind of.
Sasser is for sure like a legit point guard, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting. Like just in case.
Right, right, yeah. In case you go off the deep end.
Insurance. Yeah,
Did they trade for Sasser?
I don't think they did.
Because I got the Pistons got Sasser.
I got 25. I thought Memphis had him.
I got
It's
25 as the Pistons took him.
I got him 20. I got 25 and he went to Memphis.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a trade or something like that, but I didn't see that draft, so I don't know if they traded it or how they got it. I just saw the outcome there.
Yeah, let's see. What's this? Okay. Yeah, the Pistons took Sasser. They traded.
Oh, that's what's confusing is
Well, that makes more sense then.
on my site they don't say that it's yeah.
Right. Yeah, because mine just says Memphis drafted him.
Yeah, so the Pistons
they don't
traded
usually.
back into the first round and took Sasser.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I see that now.
Huh.
Well, that's good for the Pistons then. Because I think getting Sasser that late's a good pick for whoever. Jordan Hawkins, I think, was a great pick too at 14 because I think he's coming off of, obviously a great final season at UConn, and he's a shooter. He's just a pure shooter.
And he's related to Reese from LSU.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're cousins.
That's funny. I thought that was a great pick though too at 14. I think you get an NBA ready rookie out of him.
And then I do, even though I thought Scoot's the better player, I do like Miller. And they got Nick Smith at 27, the Hornets.
Yeah.
Then they got James Najee at center, the 31st pick. And then they just drafted Amari Bailey.
Wow. Boy, they had a lot of picks.
But it's looked like they're going the college route, though.
Yeah.
And that's, Amari Bailey was pretty dang good.
Jeez.
Well, they're going full youth movement.
That's a lot of picks.
Yeah. Got 2 guards, a center, and a small forward.
Right.
Starting 5.
Yeah, I think Miller obviously was a good pick at 2 because I think he's probably better long term than either, Henderson, Thompson's. I think Miller has a higher ceiling.
He's a 3 and D with great
right
athleticism. So yeah.
Yeah. I think just a higher ceiling.
I don't know. For me, I don't, when they talk, and this is just the media always talking like this, and they were talking about Victor, about him being the most hyped. And I'm like, there's no way he was more hyped than LeBron was. Coming out,
right.
LeBron was so hyped. I mean, they were showing his high school games.
Yeah.
We didn't see any of Victor's games. The dude is like 10 pounds.
I was watching I've watched quite a bit of his footage, and yeah, he could shoot and he could dribble. I don't think he did much different than Chet Holmgren did.
Right. And we can go way back, and I was like, I don't think Holmgren's going to be any good.
Right. Well, and you don't know yet, because obviously he gets injured. So that's the same thing that can happen here. Right.
The dude is so brittle.
I think to be playing center, right? And but he does have a good outside game, and that's the difference. Say like when Durant came out, right? It was like, oh, he's too small, or he doesn't weigh enough, he's not strong enough. But Durant really just focused on jump shooting, and pull up jumpers, shooting off the ball. He didn't even, rebound that great until later in his career. So I think it really depends on how they play him, right? So how the offense is designed, because he's got a lot of skills.
Oh yeah, but they gotta ease him in. I would not play him very many minutes early in the season at all.
Right.
You do not want to risk. I mean, you don't want to risk your franchise. I mean, next year's a wash anyways. You gotta develop him. Kind of bring him along, and then halfway through the season, then turn it on. But you don't want to take any chances there. He is very skinny, but he has ridiculous ability.
Mm-hmm.
Popovich doesn't have that much time to slow play this, though. They've already talked about him retiring.
Yeah.
Well, he's the guy.
Yeah, he might be just ready to retire and build the franchise for him. He's like, I'll do a couple things here, and then I'll just retire and just hand it over on a building, on an upward momentum.
Right. When he took over coaching, when they drafted Duncan, he was the GM.
Right.
And like, oh, I got Tim Duncan. Okay, I'm going to start being the coach.
Yeah, when was that? When was Duncan drafted? Like 98?
97.
97?
Robinson was 87 and Duncan was 97.
97. Yeah, that's crazy. I think it's one of those that you just have to see how it plays out, right? Because there's no doubt he's skilled, super skilled, right? But you also saw, I don't know if, like I said, there was plenty of footage I saw of him getting pushed around a lot, especially on defense when he was trying to stop some of the bigger guys, just backing him in, all the way underneath the hoop, and then just getting layups.
Yeah, and Popovich he's gonna fix that either two ways. It's like he's gonna fix his technique, or he's just gonna be like, you're off ball and you just block everybody from behind.
Yeah.
That's just basically, he'll figure it out. Because I mean, what's his wingspan? That's like, holy crap. It's like just stupid.
Yeah, it's like 100 feet. He blocks you from the other side of the court.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually go back on defense. I mean, but you're right. As far as LeBron James was by far the most hyped high schooler, or I guess it's just drafted player coming out. Because I mean, I guess technically, Victor's not really a high school player, because he's coming out of France.
Right. But that was what they were saying. It was like he's the most hyped basketball player ever to come in the draft. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
LeBron was way more hyped.
Yeah, LeBron, it was pretty crazy.
He signed a $90 million shoe deal before he even played the NBA.
Right. He didn't even play a game yet.
And I just remember
Kobe's got 40
putting his high school game. ESPN didn't put any of France's games on.
Which I think is kind of dumb. It would have been fun. I've watched some of his games. It's just kind of fun to watch. It's like, this is absurd.
Yeah. Well, there is, like I said, there's good and bad footage. If you watch a lot of the footage, you'll see crazy stuff, especially his shooting. His shooting is nuts because he's so tall and he's really good off the dribble. And so can you imagine trying to stop a pull-up jumper from him? Like, how's that possible? It's impossible. Like, what are you gonna do?
Blow on him and he'll fall over.
Well, you can't in the NBA anymore. It's a foul. He's like, oh, you blew on him too hard. Foul.
He says he eats 5 times a day. And they showed some of his meals he eats. I'm like, really? I wish I had that type of metabolism.
You got to when you're that tall and you're an athlete with that, your metabolism has to be insane.
Well, it's what you need to see, Wes, is like Michael Phelps's diet when he was swimming. Oh my
God.
I kind of saw that.
Yeah, so well, I guess talking about Victor, that might turn us into our next topic because he might be part of this someday. And we're talking about top five NBA draft busts. Our all-time top five NBA draft busts. And this is there's an interesting list, I think. So this was fun to do. Because some come to mind immediately, some become more prevalent after some research, and then some that come to mind immediately for me anyway. You see it do it a little differently as you start to research more, right? So let's get into it. Top five NBA draft busts. Who wants to start with number five?
Oh,
I'll go. My number five, speaking of LeBron James's draft, is Darko Milicic.
Yeah,
Picked number two by the Pistons. Then Carmelo gets picked, Dwayne Wade gets picked, later. It's like Pistons were coming off the championship
right.
and got the number two pick, and they passed on Carmelo Anthony, who single-handedly
Just
got
won
Jim
the
Boeheim his
championship,
only
right?
national championship.
uh, yeah, yeah. He was. So he's not on my list of top five, but he was right there. Like I would probably have him at six. What do you got, Wes?
I had to go with Adam Morrison in 2006 from Gonzaga. Um, Never really did anything. Tore his ACL in the preseason, of course. Only shot 37% during his rookie season.
Right.
He just everyone thought, and there was just so much noise, like, oh, he's gonna be so great, he's gonna be all-star. He didn't do anything. He didn't stay in the
No.
league.
Yeah, and it's a lot of times injuries, right, come up, but still, like injuries aren't the only factor when you talk about busts sometimes. But yeah, he didn't do a lot at all, and I think that's a good pick. So I got number five. I got Hashim to beat. The reason I picked him is because he had the hype of being this Dikembe Mutombo, Patrick Ewing type of defender, and the problem I had with him is that he didn't carry that over to the NBA. Plus, he already sucked on offense, and he didn't do well on offense either. But you didn't bring the defense that you were supposed to bring, that you were drafted for, that you were really molded for your whole college career. And then he just washed out real quick as well. Like he didn't have any real longevity in the league, and to be drafted that high, you gotta you gotta perform a lot better than that, even if it's just blocking shots and getting rebounds. Right. So I got him at five. All right, let's go number four. Wes, why don't you lead us off with number four?
Sean Bradley, Sixers number two pick, 1993. 7'6", right? That's kind of interesting. Obviously, he'd probably be the tallest player ever taken that high. He played 2.5 years in Philly, averaged 2.5 points for his career a game.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So
It's kind of amazing. I did not remember him being that bad. I thought
But
he was serviceable.
right. And that's kind of what I noticed as I started looking at these different picks and things like that and drafts busts. But I mean, he was definitely near the top of my list too. But I think I'm kind of on the same wavelength as Derek there. I like in my mind he was better than he really was. So number four, I got Adam Morrison. So Wes just mentioned him. He really was a big bust because he only ended up playing like 4 years as well. So on top of like not producing anything, he only played 4 years. never had his rookie season was his best season. It still wasn't that good. And then it's just gone. You're talking about a number 3 pick. Is Jordan's first pick, ever as a owner, GM. Like you get picked by the GOAT, like you better come to play. And but the disappointing thing I think for Morrison was he played so well at Gonzaga. He had a really high scoring average, just took them, far every season, and that was a big bust. We got a 4, Derek.
Well, my 4, he had okay numbers, but he just didn't play very much. And his nickname in college was Never Nervous Purvis, but his nickname in the pros was Out of Service Purvis. That's Purvis
funny.
Ellison. He was the number 1 pick overall, traded after 1 year.
Right.
He was traded the next year after being the number 1 overall pick.
That's a good top good guy in there. I didn't have him in my top. I didn't even think I had him in my top 10.
Because he basically took and got Louisville a national championship. He was the man. And then he just never took over in the NBA, and he was hurt all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. All right, so number 3, it's me. I'll lead off here. So I have Anthony Bennett here. And when you're talking about the number 1 overall pick, like you better be good. Like you got to bring something more than, going. I mean, his career stats are bad. Like 4 points, 3 rebounds career, Again, you're playing 4 years, then you bounce to the D League, and now like nobody even knows who and where you are. And so when you do that as a number 1 pick, that's to me that's a huge bust. And I never thought he was that good in the first place, but he showed it when he came to the NBA. So Bennett 3, what do you got?
That's my number 3 too, is Anthony Bennett. He was labeled as the next Larry Johnson because he came from UNLV. He was about the same height, same build, and then he just disappeared.
Yeah, that was and it just like disappeared from the moment he was drafted too.
Yeah, he didn't do anything memorable at all.
Right. It just like guy goes number 1 and then just never hear from him again. All right, Wes, what do you got at 3?
I got Markel Fultz, number 1 pick in 2017 from Washington. Early in his career, shoulder surgery kind of screwed things up, but it screwed up his shooting stroke. It took him forever to like recover. He really couldn't even shoot very well. I think it was 2018. He was shooting 33% from the field. His highest scoring game in his career is 28 points and 4 steals. He plays currently for the Orlando Magic, but doesn't really do. I mean, he's all right, but I mean, everyone thought he was gonna be so. I remember the hype. It's like
there was a lot of hype around.
There's a lot of hype. It's like, come on, he's not that good.
Yeah,
it's kind of unfair that he got picked first because he should have been the first pick. No.
And here's my issue with the process. You get those draft picks. You got to draft the right people.
Yeah.
You took Fultz. You could have had Jason Tatum, right? I mean,
yeah.
Look at all those wasted early picks they had. Fultz, Okafor, Noel. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, Cleveland kind of did the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, what the worst part is, he lost his starting job to JJ Redick, your boy. Come on, dude. I mean,
yeah, he was a pretty big disappointment. That's for sure. Especially, for the number 1, but also with the hype around him.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to number 2. Derek.
My number 2 is Greg Oden.
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick. Blazers didn't learn at all, didn't learn anything. Injury history center or dynamic scorer. Let's take the injury riddled center. And what happened? Dame
Right.
wouldn't be irritated and upset right now if it was him and Durant.
No.
Don't even say that.
Even that, it would have been LaMarcus Aldridge, Durant, and Lillard.
Right. It was a big miss with Odin, and yeah, I mean, like Odin has to be up there. Like when you look at like all time bus, I don't know how you don't put Odin up there. Wes, what do you got it to?
I got Sam Bowie. You know, I mean, all right player. I mean, it's not like Odin was just couldn't play because
A couple years and out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, let's not take that Michael Jordan guy. I mean, it's effing Michael Jordan.
Right.
Don't take Michael Jordan. You take it even sounds wrong. Sam, you take either Sam Bowie or Michael Jordan.
Well,
I will be
effing kidding me.
To be fair,
oh God,
back in that no, here's the thing. It was a
saying.
positional league, right? They didn't play positionless game. And
that's
what
why it's not number 1.
Already have. They had Clyde Drexler.
Right.
That's why it's not number 1.
The dumbest thing what they should have done was taken Barkley.
Yeah, and Barkley would have been a good pick. I mean, obviously, that's the hard part about the Sam Bowie whole Michael Jordan debacle is, first of all, they lose the coin flip for Olajuwon.
Yeah, that's
right. So that already really sucks. But they had a team built already. They were missing a center, and it was a game of filling holes back then. My thing with Sam Bowie is he actually had a pretty long career. Yeah, he had injuries at Portland. He started off in Portland, played decently. He actually had decent statistics. He was a decent center, but then he missed a whole year. Had a hard time coming back from the injury, and then they traded the Nets, and he plays pretty well for another 4 or 5 years. And so I think the biggest thing with Sam Bowie and the hardest thing to get over is that you drafted him before Michael Jordan.
Right.
Like, hey, by the way, you missed out on the best player ever. Good job. So my number 2 is also.
He would have been that good if he Blazers.
Yeah, right. He probably would have got injured.
Well, I was going to say they did trade Sam Bowie for Buck Williams.
Right.
There you go.
I mean, he gave him some good numbers too, good years. So I got my number 2 is also a Portland center, except it's not Sam Bowie or Greg Oden. It's LaRue Martin.
I saw that.
Another center. This is before Sam Bowie, so you already should have learned once. Drafted him number 1 overall. Dude barely played 4 years. They played 5 years, and then averaged like 5 points a game. Like no blocks, 4 rebounds a game, like didn't do anything as a number 1 overall center pick.
Yeah.
And then you come back and do it again twice. So at some point, like you had to learn, but here's what makes him a bust to me. It's like you come in, yeah, he was a little bit undersized for a center, but you're still the number 1 overall pick, right? And at that time, the number 1 overall pick was a big deal, especially at a center. And when you don't perform at all, and then you're just, again, nobody's ever heard of you, right? Because you were such a bust.
I did. So, I saw that like on one site, top 5 picks bus. 3 of them were the Blazers.
Oh God, it's so
Well, the
bad.
thing with LaRue too was a little conspiracy. Because Bob McAdoo came out that year.
Right.
The rumors were he was going to go in the ABA. And the NBA commissioner advised NBA teams not to take him.
Right.
So the Blazers took LaRue Martin. The Buffalo Braves, with the next pick,
Took
Bob
Dr. J.
McAdoo.
Or no, or you also could have Dr. J.
Yeah, Dr. J, but he was already playing in the ABA at the time.
Right.
But McAdoo was drafted second overall and went to the NBA.
Yeah.
So if they didn't listen to the commissioner, would have just drafted McAdoo.
Yeah. Or you could have got Dr. J. He was pretty good too.
Yeah, but he would have had to. I don't know what had happened. See, because the Bucks drafted Dr. J, and he never played for the Bucks. So
right.
I don't know if he just wasted that pick or not.
Yeah, they definitely had some weird, different things happening back then because of the two leagues. So that's what I got as my number two. Let's see. Let's get to number one here. Wes, you're leading us off. Number one.
Greg Oden. Greg Oden, man. It's like, yeah, just that Kevin Durant guy became pretty good, and Greg Oden, I don't know, still around. I don't even know where he is, but yeah, it was pretty horrific. I remember. No, he's at the. Remember when we saw him?
Yeah.
We saw him at Factory, and it was a comedy night, and he's like out there, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, we're like, why are you here? You should be like, shouldn't you be practicing or rehabbing or wherever you're doing? And the comedian like busted on him. He started like busting on him hardcore, like just roasting him. It was like Thanksgiving too. I was like,
brutal.
It was brutal. And you know what? A week later, he got hurt. Done. Last time he played.
He's I mean, my number one's also Greg Oden. So I mean, I'm right there with you. Obviously, we all have him near the top. What I also didn't like about Oden is he's the epitome of bust, right? He didn't perform. He definitely had injuries, but he also the big problem I had with him was attitude, willingness to want to perform. And I get it. Injuries happen, right? That's part of sports. But to be the number one pick, to be this generational talent that everybody thought he was, enough for you to take him over Kevin Durant. Because it's not like everybody didn't know Kevin Durant wasn't going to be good. Everybody knew Durant was going to be good. Like they knew it. So it wasn't like, oh, we don't know about this Kevin Durant kid. Like everybody knew he was good. But there was hype around Oden as like, this is like going to be one of the most amazing centers to ever play the game.
Like the game, it was still the 1980s. They were thinking,
right.
oh yeah, we're just gonna get another, a center that's gonna carry us into the, the 21st century. It's like Kevin Durant, a dude with that wingspan, with
that's the thing though. Athletically, the range he had, like I remember Marcus Aldridge, who is a big guy. Was he 6'10", probably maybe 6'11"? He's a shot blocker. He could jump. He was talking about one day in practice where he went up for a block and Oden was like a foot higher than him, blocking behind him. So like Aldridge couldn't get the block, goes over Aldridge's hand, but then Oden's a foot higher and gets it, And so, yeah, it's not like he didn't have the skill set. I think he didn't have the mentality. I think that's what made him the biggest bust.
And he looked like he was 40 when he was 20. That should have been the first sign, like, something's wrong here. I mean, you look like Robert Parrish right now. And you're like 19.
He was also injured throughout the whole season in college.
Right. He was definitely hurt plenty in college.
Let's check those joints out, maybe, before we start like pulling the trigger on this,
So I'm same as you there, Wes. And we know Oden's not number one for Derek because he already had Oden at 2.
Mine is very controversial.
Uh-oh.
Never played a game in the NBA, so that's why he's the biggest draft bust ever. That's Lynn Bias.
Oh man, that is controversial.
Oh my God.
You're taking number 1 overall and you die of a drug overdose the next day.
Right.
I didn't know it was the next day.
Yeah.
What? God, this
He was
must have been the
partying from
80s.
the
That's bad.
yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's not much more of a bust than that, right? Because you actually didn't even step on the court.
Bus, yeah.
But that's a tough one. Like I'm leaving dead guys out of my list.
Derek doesn't care.
Derek's
Derek
like,
just
this
goes
doesn't
for the
matter.
jugular. He's like, facts are facts.
Well, if it was any other franchise, it
Yeah.
would have destroyed the franchise.
Derek pulled a De Niro. This is this. This isn't something else. This is this.
It's like, what, Derek, you want to talk about Hank Gathers too?
Oh, we should be laughing.
Hank Gathers didn't die of a recreational drug
Yeah,
overdose, so
right. So yeah, so we can blame Lynn because he's a druggie.
no, that was
No, he
that's
wasn't.
I mean, it's super
he had a
sad
heart
because
problem.
he wasn't even. That was like his first time doing it too.
Yeah, right. They're just bad decisions.
But that's, I mean, you just wasted the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
even
rough.
I didn't even look to see who was in that draft.
What year was it?
Wasn't that like a rough time for like a couple people in that draft? Like, didn't a couple people have problems?
Probably in '86.
Oh,
Oh, okay, he wasn't first. He must have been second. Yeah, he was second overall. Brad Doherty went 1. But you had, because Roy Tarpley was in the same draft.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Tarpley was in the same draft.
But you
And
had
another one too, right?
Chris Washburn.
Yeah. Chris
2 and
Washburn.
3 were complete, but you also had Chuck Person, Ron Harper, Johnny Dawkins, John Sally, Hot Rod Williams, Del Curry. It's also the Mark Price, Dennis Rodman, Sabonis, all got drafted that year. So
Right.
Kevin Duckworth.
It's kind of crazy though that because Washburn, he could easily have made the list.
Yeah.
And then Roy Tarpley, who played pretty good, still had a drug problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Because
in that same
Tarpley got
draft,
banned from the NBA.
right? Yeah. That was a weird draft for sure.
Yeah, because Washburn played for 2 years.
Right. He was drafted, what, 6 or something like that?
No, he was 3.
3. Wow. Wow. I mean, yeah, and that's right there. That could easily be top 5. But nobody knows about him because he just disappeared.
Yeah, and I mean, think about that. Like that was the years you had perfect. There were lots of really big busts in the mid '80s.
Right. Yeah, they didn't really. Scouting wasn't at its top back then. Oh man, that's a good list. We had a lot of difference on there than I thought we would. Of course, Wes had to throw a couple in there that you wouldn't guess, and then Derek finishes off the grand finale. So let's get into our next topic then. This is a good topic. So as we've been doing traditionally here on the HSC podcast, throwing something besides sports at people. We're back in movies. And this time we're talking about maybe one of the greatest franchises of all time. James Bond, 007. Does it get any better than that? I mean, think about how long this has been going on. When was the first movie? 60?
62.
62,
Oh.
right? And then they just had one in 2021 and they have another one coming, right?
Well, they need to get a new James Bond.
Well, as soon as they figure out who's going to be the new James Bond, right? But
Right,
still,
yeah.
like you're talking about 60 years, right?
60 years almost.
Yeah, 60 years between first movie and last movie. So love it. Obviously, we all love James Bond. Everybody should. such a great
It should
character.
be required viewing in
If
school.
you card
You
viewing,
should watch
I
every
watched
single one and write a thesis.
a lot of James Bond when I was young, and a lot of the older ones too.
Yeah.
There was a time period where I didn't enjoy it too much. There a couple of the not all of them, but there's a couple. Pierce Brosnan I wasn't super happy about. Uh,
Timothy Dalton.
Timothy Dalton was a rough little. It's just like a hiccup though,
Yeah.
you know. And
Movie
then
role.
there even like there is some stuff I also don't like about Daniel Craig. There's some stuff I really like about him though too. Like he plays the role a little differently than I guess that I enjoy, but I do like some of the things he does that he can do. So so here we go. Top five. Well, we're not talking top five James Bond movies. We're talking top five James Bond villains. So we're throwing in a twist. And so let's now I will tell you, I mean, we'll start off by saying I might be a little looser on this list than you guys as what classifies as the villain.
Yeah.
Are you
That's the
talking
thing.
henchman?
Yeah, like that was hard for me too because I was like, oh, it's kind of a henchman, but they're villains. But
Yeah.
what's a because there's the ultimate masterminds, right? And sometimes there's
Mhm.
multiple of them because sometimes the ultimate mastermind is Spectre, you know. So
Yep.
it's not like the it's actually you know that anyway. So let's get into it. Here we go. Top five James Bond villains. Wes, why don't you lead us off? Number five.
I got Odd Job
Nice.
just because it's Odd Job. I mean, the
Love
part
Odd Job.
where he throws the hat and it chops off, the statue's head, and that was cool. But when he crushed the golf ball, like, you know how hard it is to crush a golf ball? And the look on, I mean, you're just like, what? And the look on
Right.
007's face. Yeah, I used to tell my dad it because we'd watch that, laugh about it. And I said, it's funny because 007's like, kind of gives you that look like, oh, dude, this dude's going to kill me. I don't care.
Right.
Whatever. So it's like, and
Like,
then
I'm
the
doing
end
fun.
fight scene with Odd Job is just like, he's like throwing gold off his chest. It's just bouncing off. I
I
mean,
he's Odd Job's definitely on my list. That was one of the ones where I was like
yeah,
henchman versus villain,
yeah.
and but I love Odd Job. One of my favorite characters of all. You know when he goes down to that, um, and I'll be with you in a minute when we talk about henchmen. But I'm gonna tell you right now. I'll go with my number five is Mr. Big. Uh, Mr. Big, you know, you talking about Roger Moore, you know, it's kind of like his coming out Bond party. He's not playing it that well, you know, and Mr. Big kind of makes the movie, right? But he it's like he's he's like this in control of all these different people. It's like he's running a network, you know, and he's like this big time guy, which hence the name Mr. Big. So I really like. He also really encapsulated the character better than sometimes some of the other villains did. Because there's been good villains in the past where I don't know if they encapsulated their character as well as he did. So I got
Yeah.
Mr. Big at five.
I thought Wes would have said the best part of that movie is Jane Seymour.
Right.
We'll talk about Bond girls another time.
Yeah. That's another topic.
My five is a henchman, but it's not Odd Job. I love Odd Job, but I left him off my list. But mine is, to me, the quintessential henchman, and that's Jaws. Good old Jaws.
Oh, the best.
I mean, they kind of did him dirty when they turned him good in Moonraker, but
Right.
Spy Who Loved Me, man, he didn't have to say a word. Both of them, Odd Job and Jaws, they didn't talk at
Yeah. Jaws just so daunting, you know, and it's like he just looked the part so well, so good, you know, it's just like perfect. Like you couldn't cast anybody better for that part. You can't, you know, and so I, I'll my number four is Jaws. So I have Jaws at 4. It's my only henchman. Even though there's I have, I love Odd Job, love another henchman I won't mention in case it's on your list, but Jaws for me, I put Jaws at 4 because I couldn't put him above that just because there's some really iconic villains. But Jaws is just it's so perfect. I love the role. I love how they cast him. Everything was perfect with him. So and it's just one of those when I was young, I was like, man, watch out for Jaws. It wasn't like the fish Jaws. It was like the Bond henchman Jaws. I love it. Number 4, Jaws.
Here I'm going outside the box with this villain. I love him so much. He's so campy though, but I just love him so much. It's Max Zorin.
Oh yeah, but it's also Christopher Walken. So
It
it's not
is.
just Mac. So you get a double header there.
He's so good. And then he's got like Grace Jones as his
Yeah.
henchman, and so it's like, yeah,
Well, that's
beauty
that. I
kill,
mean,
man.
Mayday. Grace Jones plays
Yeah.
Mayday, and probably my favorite henchman of all the Bonds. I don't think, like I said, Jaws is still number 1 as far as like the role, but I just love how Grace Jones played that part.
Yeah.
That was awesome. All right, Wes, what do you got it for?
That's my number 4 too.
Zoran?
Zoran, man. I mean, just even the character itself is he's actually just like a CIA creation,
Right.
right? So, he's basically, I mean, he's just bred that way. And just the lines he has in it, and
Well, and,
he just plays this psycho so well.
right. Without being over the top, I mean, there's so much he does good. So yeah. Let's see, number 3, Derek, your lead.
Yep. It's for me, and this was one of the Bond villains that was equally as skilled as him. And that's Scaramanga,
Oh, interesting.
man with the golden gun.
Yeah, man, the Golden Gun.
Christopher Lee, man. Can't go wrong with the movie's not as good as the other movies, but as a villain,
Right. There's a good
great
interaction. There's a good interaction between them throughout, and it doesn't just not just like the end interaction. It's like the mind games
right.
that they're playing.
He's like the gentleman too. He's like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
kill you, but I'm just gonna hang out with you for a second before
Yeah. Before I try to do that. Yeah, man with Golden Gun. Like it. All right, Wes, what do you got at 3?
Gotta go with Goldfinger.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just his demeanor, and there's just so many great lines. There's just so many great lines with him and 007 and going back and forth at the end.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just
I mean, yeah, I love Goldfinger. And he just plays the part so well. It's funny though. It's like Austin Powers almost kind of ruined it. But you obviously what he's spoofing on, but I think he did a good job. I like Goldfinger, one of my top ones. So I know Derek might not agree with this one, but I got number 3. I got Doctor No.
no, I agree. I just
Yeah,
watched that today.
and the
I like
original
Dr.
Doctor
No.
No. The reason I like because he's like it's the original villain. It's that beginning of the series. It's Bond against the arch villain, and I thought you might have him higher, so maybe you don't. I could have him higher because I really believe that it's kind of the making of the villain. He's the OG villain.
So remember where you're talking about Live and Let Die, where it seemed like it took a while for Roger Moore to kind of warm up to the role.
Right.
The whole script and everything, it seemed like the same thing with the Doctor No.
Yeah.
Until Doctor No, they met and
Right.
they sat at the table And I was telling my dad this the other day. I was like, this is when 007 became 007.
Right.
But that interaction
Doesn't happen without
was
Dr. No, right?
was brilliant. And
Mhm.
and you could tell he started feeling comfortable. He found his
Mhm.
mojo at 007. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, and you find the whole good versus bad, you
Yeah.
find the hero versus villain
Yeah.
role. All right. Well, this is where it starts getting tougher. Number 2, Wes.
I got Christopher Plummer, the man with the golden gun.
Yeah.
I mean, right at the beginning of the movie, it's like, oh shoot, this dude's his sole purpose is to take out 007. Forget about taking over the world and all this stuff. Yeah, there's lasers and all this stuff, but he wants to duel
Lasers.
007. He wants to duel 007,
Okay.
and you're like, whoa, this is kind of interesting.
It's
And
iconic.
yeah, and just he's a kind of a creepy dude. I mean, he's a great. I mean, Christopher Plummer is a great actor. I mean, and
Right.
For Lee.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, yeah. It's just, yeah, he's nailed the role.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always liked that role. The movie itself slightly brings it down for me a little bit. Because it's not one of my favorite Bonds. I mean, obviously I like them all, but it wasn't one of my top. Um, so number 2, I got Zoran. Zoran was so close to being number 1, but because he's not as iconic in the franchise, he just plays in this really great movie, but he plays the role so perfectly to be this like relaxed psychopath and doing all the things he's trying to do, but just doing it as as Christopher Walken playing that part. Like it's hard to get better than that when you're asking for a villain. And he's still got the mass plans. He's still got the great henchmen. He's still got it all. And then yeah, so he nails that role. I got Zoran at 2.
This is where you guys are gonna think, huh? So my 2 is Alec Trevelyan.
Oh yeah. So he's on my list, and God, it was so hard not to keep him on there. First of all, I love Goldeneye, but yeah, tell us why you got him there.
Well, because he's a 00, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just the whole scene where Bond at the very beginning sets the timer earlier than he's supposed to, and then later in the movie, Alex like, well, I set the timer, for the way you had it. And he's just because he knew the game plan, he knew the playbook, and so, and then he had on the top, man, you have a femme fatale plus a henchman right there.
Right. Yeah, and what's his name? Sean Bean. Yeah, he plays the role so well. He's a really good actor, number 1. But he plays that role really well. So I would say one of the better, again, in encapsulating the role of a lot of the different villains. So he was definitely on my list. It was really hard. It's really hard not to keep him on there. He Mr. Big edged him out. All right, well, number 1, and I don't know, and obviously there's multiple parts of this, but I mean Blofeld. Is there any other way to go on this? I just don't know that there is. Like I tried to like sneak Zorn in my head in there, I tried to say, oh, it could be Doctor No, it could be, there's a couple Goldfinger, I had all these other Man with the Golden Gun, but it's Blofeld, right? Because that's just it. Obviously, some people played it better than others, but I think that's the most iconic villain that you'll ever have in James Bond.
Yeah, that's who I got as Blofeld too. I'm just trying to remember what. So there was Teddy Savalas.
Yeah, Terry Savalas. Is it Terry or Teddy? It's Teddy.
Teddy Savalas. He was the first,
Yeah.
right? And then you
No,
had
he
Donald
was.
Pleasance.
No, wasn't Teddy Savalas like the third?
No, because he was in the
No,
you know,
Teddy
right after
Savalas
because
was
Connery
second.
didn't have a Blofeld, did he?
Yeah, he did. Well, he now in so You Only Live Twice. They had the one bald-headed Blofeld. That was the first one.
Right. The first one, the guy that had the cat.
Right.
But
But
yeah,
then the other Blofeld was in Diamonds Forever, but he was in
Right.
You Only Live Twice too. The guy with the gray
gotcha.
hair. He was the third one. The second one's
Right.
Eddie Savalas.
Yeah, Savalas was
Kelly
second.
Savalas was second. Donald Pleasance was first, and You Only Live
Yes.
Twice.
Right. Yeah. Because
And then
that's where the petting of the cat came in, and that's where Mike Myers, you
Yeah.
know, did his thing on it on his
And then yeah, you had Charles Gray was Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah.
Max von Sydow, Never Say Never Again, and then Christopher Waltz for Spectre.
Yeah.
So
that it's iconic because it is the best villain, but they also like make it interchangeable for different movies and still have this, iconic villain because it's really the ultimate like enemy of Bond, right?
yeah,
But the ultimate enemy of the world.
Right. He's the world
Basically,
arch
the
enemy.
enemy of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Bond's the good guy, he's the bad guy of the world.
Yeah. Of the whole world.
Yeah. What do you got at one, Wes?
I got Christopher Waltz, Blofeld.
Yeah.
So that's some of those scenes they're eerie. He's just that good. And then of course he has to make it the in Paris in the last one.
Right.
And he has a pivotal role in that too. I mean, he didn't die or anything. He basically ends everything right there. I mean, he's pulling the strings, even when he's in, prison. So yeah, I got Crystal Waltz.
Yeah, what a list though, because what's the guy that played in Casino Royale, the
Yeah,
villain?
Lashif was almost.
Yeah, that's what
there. Yeah.
that for me, that's also the kind of Bond villain that I really enjoy because it's like a thinking man's game.
Yeah.
But then also like the way he tortures him,
Yeah.
like it's just messed up. So I really like him in that. Like Mayday is like I said, great henchman. Goldfinger obviously is up there. So so those are some of my honorable mentions. I think they could easily be interchangeable within the list.
all right. Well, Spectre, right? That's number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
Right. I guess number one would be Spectre, right? But Blofeld really is Spectre, so
Right.
it's like Henkel and Einhorn, right?
No.
They're the same. Okay, that's good. Good top five there. So to kind of wrap up the James Bond thing here, we're just not gonna do top five, but what's your favorite James Bond movie? So for anybody that's still listening, this is the movie you need to watch if you're not a James Bond fan. What do you tell them?
You mean our favorite or the best one?
Okay, go with whatever you think.
I'm just gonna go with my favorite, and that's Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Are we doing just one or top five?
We're just doing one.
Just one.
Just one or one. Yeah. It's Live and Let Die. It's just, yeah, like you said, Mr. Big is a good villain.
Yeah.
But just everything. It's just it makes me just want to like transport into the 70s.
Right. Well, and it's a good plot. Like he's going and like figuring out the assassinations, and then they're like trying to kill him the whole movie, like with all these different assassination attempts.
And the best supporting actor of that movie was the boat race. and the sheriff is like
Right.
hilarious. It's like he has so many great lines. He almost
Yeah.
makes the movie.
Well, didn't he appear in another one too?
It was terrible. It was the next one because it was the man with the
Was it-
golden gun,
Oh.
and it was. I mean, a lot of that movie was terrible. I mean, Christopher Lee made the movie, but he was in that too. Yeah, another boat thing, but
Yeah, for me, it's A View to a Kill. There's so much in that movie as far as like different things they're doing. It's the scenes are always so different from where they're going to place, and like sometimes it's on the mountain, sometimes they're up in a hot air balloon and in a mine, and they're on the equestrian field, with horses. And but then you've got, I think at that time Roger Moore really coming into his own. I think it's his last movie, right?
yeah.
So it's really his last Bond movie.
Now they did the same thing with another Bond movie, and it was one of the worst ones. That was Moonraker.
Right.
They did it like so many different scenes, and then that wasn't enough. They had to shoot him into space.
Right, but
I mean,
come on, dude. So Moonraker is one of the worst because it's like you're gonna go into space and have Bond in space. It's like Jason in space, Friday the 13th in space.
What's dumb about it is it was when all those movies were like you had Superman,
right.
you had Star Trek. It's like, no, we got to do the same thing. It's like, really? It's
But
James Bond. He doesn't belong in space.
There is one thing about that movie. It's one of the best like villain plots. Like his plot is to like build like a race of people and then like
chicks.
from space like poison gas everybody or something like that.
You
like,
know what's insulting though? The insulting thing about that is he didn't think the girl with the glasses was just because she had bad eyes. Come on.
Right. But yeah, Moonraker's pretty bad. But I Love You to Kill. It's always been one of my favorite Bonds, if not always my favorite. Just the acting's great on it. Like I said, Grace Jones kills it, but Christopher Walken makes the movie.
I remember watching as a kid. I was like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, I shouldn't be having these feelings. I'm like 6.
I shouldn't be having these feelings. All right. Well, what do you got there?
Well, I mean, it's got to be Goldfinger, man.
It's got to be Goldfinger.
I mean, are you going to go meet the president too, Goldfinger?
That is the best Bond comeback because it's like, oh, dude, he's screwed. He's on a plane with Goldfinger. He's gonna die. Yeah. And he's like, at first, he's like, thinks about it. He's like, he doesn't care. He's like, he does that line. It's like so funny.
I mean, like you have Aja, Pussy Galore. You got, the girl that it's turned to gold.
Right.
Jill Masterson.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like Goldfinger is legit one of the better villains too. Yeah. Right. And then his
nonsense.
He has one of the better plots too. Like when you think about it, like his plot is to like destroy US's gold, so his gold becomes worth more, right?
Yeah, and you're like, it is kind of a twist, and you're like, what? Like, oh,
and then of course they have to get China involved.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing is like Bond, no matter how like many comebacks and everything, Goldfinger was just stone-faced the whole time.
Yeah. And then
if I want someone who's never seen the Bond movie, that's the one I want them to see first.
Right. As long as they've never seen Austin Powers.
Yeah.
I swear he ruined that movie.
Yeah, but he's not. I mean, Goldmember is nowhere like they have nothing in common at all.
Right. I love gold.
I want to be like an honorable mention was the next movie after Goldfinger. And I think that one is the most put together one, but you don't really have the biggest villain. And that's From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
That's before it.
Is that before? Yeah, that's second
before it,
right?
No, it's in a lot of it's usually rated in the top 5 in every review I've seen because it's just a good movie. The plot is good. It's not over the top. It's not, it's none of that stuff. It's a solid movie.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with the first three.
No.
I don't.
Yeah.
The first three, they're perfect movies to me.
The henchman, that henchman was good. Because that was remember the beginning where he choked the fake 007? You're like, oh. And then you knew he was the bad, and he was trying to figure it out. Like, who's this guy? You're like, dude, it's the bad guy, dude. And he figured it out.
What about the newer ones? Like just Daniel Craig. What do you guys think?
Well, I did a top 5, and I put it at 5 because to just give Daniel Craig an olive branch, but I have Skyfall. I think Skyfall's the best.
I think it's one of the best Bond movies. It's really good. I didn't think it'd be good. That's a good villain too.
Javier Bardem was so good as a villain.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I think Skyfall, if you're going to watch one of the newer ones, that's the way to go.
The thing with Daniel Craig, and it's just for me, he's not really funny at all.
No.
You know what I mean? He's just mostly business. So it's like
That's
a Goldfinger.
the funniest one he was in.
He's just ready to go and fight.
Skyfall was the funnest he was in out of all of them. You know, because he was human. He was becoming how the movie started. 007 wasn't a young guy.
Right.
In the beginning movies. So he was becoming the old, like the Sean Connery 007. And he was having a hard time adjusting to that. He's like, I'm getting old. And that was what was cool about it. He was human. And then he came out and became a badass. Anyways, he found a different way to win when he got old.
He doesn't put the personality into 007 though, especially Sean Connery did, you know. But it's like, I guess you could call it funny, sense of humor, but it's just like he's very robotic, you know, and he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that, like, I'm a real person, you know. Instead, you're just Bond.
Well, that's he made it more like an action movie guy instead of a James Bond to me.
Right.
Now, his movie's really good. I just didn't think he personified the entire of a Bond.
He's like he's like an ex-military guy type of Bond who, yes, that's how a person would be going through the crap he's gone through, but it's not as entertaining. You know?
Right.
What is the worst Bond movie?
Oh, Moonraker. It's gotta be Moonraker.
Let's think about this for a second. Now he thinks I always thought it was Octopus. I taped Octopussy and I've watched it a few times. Octopussy is pretty bad. The villain's annoying. I mean, he's like yelling the whole time, and then it's always got to have a circus or something like that.
Yeah, like the Fabergé egg.
But Moonraker is, that's a tough one.
Yeah, the villain's good in that though.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Yeah. What's the one with Bambi and Thumper in it?
That's Diamonds. Diamonds Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever. I like that. That's a great one. With the hitmen.
Do you know that one? They ran out of money because they had to pay Sean Connery, and that's when there was a big riff. Like he wanted to get paid, and they ran out of money, and so they didn't have money to finish the movie, and that's why the special effects in the last 20 minutes are terrible. I mean, dude, if I'm a producer, I'm like, all right, let's just cut this out, and people will know something blew up. We don't have to show it's like me lighting fireworks in the front yard and throwing Derek into it. It's like, it's like, oh yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's pretty awful too. Both of those movies aren't my favorites. But I can really say those are the only two I really don't like at all, you know. I mean, I'll still watch them, of course. I've watched them multiple times.
Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah.
You know.
Is that the Jonathan Pryce one, or
that's the media mogul one? I don't know.
Yeah, Jonathan Pryce.
Harvard. It's annoying.
Yeah, the sad thing is the Pierce Brosnan ones. You know, you had Goldeneye, which was amazing,
Yeah, Goldeneye
and
was
then
really good.
Tomorrow Never Dies was not good. I mean, you had what? Wasn't that the
World's
one
Not
with Terry
Enough was-
Hatcher?
yeah, that was annoying.
Is that the one with Denise Richards too, where she's like a
No. That's the next one. That's World's Not Enough.
yeah,
And
that one's
she
horrible
just-
too.
Yeah,
just
World's Not Enough is
ruins
not
it.
great.
I
they're
like
not-
the action. She just
They're
ruined it.
right. They're
It's
not
so
terrible though. They're not. They're
But
not
that one
terrible.
isn't because that one you have Robert Carlyle, right? And he's great
Yeah.
as a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was good. He was solid.
No,
So they're still watchable movies. Like they're still good enough movies, you know.
here's one though. When I first watched it, I thought it was awesome. Now I watch it, I'm like, this is really bad. Die Another Day.
Yeah.
I
mean,
thought it was.
That's like
World's
jumping
Not
on the
Enough.
shark, jumping the shark on that one.
All right.
Yeah, the whole surfboard thing ruined. When the surfboard thing happened, I'm like, really? That's another thing you cut out. You have to show them, like, what is this, a Beach Boys movie? It's
Right.
like, you know, is this a Beach Boys? This is stupid.
Is Annette Funicello going to show up?
Again,
Yeah.
Bond doesn't belong in space, and Bond doesn't belong on a surfboard.
He belongs in a car that goes into the water and turns into a
But
submarine.
no, don't tell me the car sings and Die Another. That was pretty awesome on the ice. That was pretty cool.
Right.
I like it. I like the action. I just don't like
Right.
just.
I like the villains in that one though too.
Yeah.
Like how ridiculous of it is where you make yourself into a white guy.
Well, that's okay though.
Like he goes from what was a North Korean to a British white guy.
Right.
I mean, that's a little over the top, but I don't know. And Madonna, and then Madonna shows up. Like, what is Madonna doing? I was like, at least put in Britney Spears. I mean, why Madonna? You know,
Because she did the theme song.
I know. You get it. Throw her a bone.
Well, I think we just ruined our Bond top 5. For not for villains, but for if we were gonna do like top 5 movies. Like I think we just said them all.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now people got them.
Yeah, you're our top 5.
Well, we always could do top 5 opening scenes from Bond movies next time.
Yeah, all the skiing scenes, like 3 of them.
Oh, dude.
Scenes. What's the best skiing scene?
Dude, that's why View to Kill is the best. View to Kill is by far the best skiing scene. Dude, he picks up the what was a snowboard kind of because it was part of the snowmobile. Then he starts snowboarding on it before snowboarding was cool.
I don't know. I think Spy Who Loved Me. Spy Who Loved Me was pretty badass too.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the one he gets on the parachute that's got the British flag on it.
Right.
I will say View is my favorite because of the surfboard. But you want to talk about, I know he's annoying, kind of the movie is, but Majesty, those skiing scenes are legit.
Yeah, those are good ones too.
They had some great action skiing scenes, and I couldn't believe it. And I think that's part of the reason why in a lot of top 5s, Majesty is in, just because of those skiing scenes.
Yeah.
Imagine if Connery would have done that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Best.
Done. That would be the best. That would be the best Bond movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here at finish off with our Bond. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're still listening, appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Hit your notification bell so you can get the next podcast, which I'm a little behind, but I'll have up soon. Hopefully we're working on some editing too, so we're working on that. Talked about NBA, talked about James Bond, but we got a couple more months till football season, so we're filling some time. If you have anything you want to hear, leave it in the comments. We love to go from some comments and use those as topics. But everybody, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.